So that brings us to the Sandbox challenge. And this might be something you want to work on in class while I do the next part of the lecture. Although some of you may want to pay attention to the lecture coming up after this. The Sandbox challenge is going to be a little bit of Lincoln versus Swift, two of the great intellectual minds of our time. I have collected for you the lyrics to one of Taylor Swift's maybe better songs. I don't know. It's definitely quotable. But also I have collected for you the second inaugural address of Abraham Lincoln, which significantly is written on the wall of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. A very moving piece of text, by the way. Maybe even more moving than Taylor Swift's song. Maybe. Yeah, no, it is. It's really a great piece of writing. But I want to do some comparative word analysis on these as our Sandbox project. And I'm going to give you some leeway here as far as what you want to do, because as you know, Sandboxes are not for a grade. They're just for you to play around with. But what I would suggest is, as you think about these, and this Python file is downloadable from our website. But what I would suggest thinking about as you stare at this text is start to do some things here. And what I would recommend is also, while you're doing some things with this text, is use it as an opportunity to create some really good general purpose functions that you can use. And you might hang on to some of these for later. You might create a function that takes a parameter of a string and spits out a list of words that have been cleaned of punctuation, made lowercase, and put into an array. Just as an example. That's a useful one. You might use that for a lot of different text analysis. You might create a function that takes an array of words and spits out a few basic metrics. Did you know, here's an interesting thing, and I bet you didn't because I haven't shared this with you yet, but maybe you did figure it out on your own. Did you know that for a function, I can return any kind of data that I want? I could return a dictionary. I could return a tuple. I could return a list. It doesn't have to be an integer or a string or a float. So I could return a dictionary that was full of information about that text if I wanted to. So there's all kinds of things, but this is a great opportunity because it's a relatively simple task. It's a great opportunity to play around with creating functions that work and are really conform to that black box model. So let's say if I wanted to create a function called word count, and I'm gonna give it text as a parameter, and I want it to tell me how many words are in that text. So my parameter is going to be called strText. So now inside that, I'm going to return int words. So what I've got to figure out is how to get from text to a count of words. That's from A to B inside that function. So given a piece of text, the first thing I need to do is split that into an array. AR text equals str text. Okay, so I'm taking that, whatever they give me as a parameter, I'm gonna split that, and I'm just gonna use the default, which is the space. And then what I need to do is find out how many things are in that list, which I would use length, right? So I'm going to use int words equals length, AR. Now remember, because length is a general function in Python and not a method, I'm not using arrtext.len. I'm using len with arrtext as the argument. Okay, so that is my whole function here. So now I can use that function. I can print word count str Lincoln, print word count str Swift. And when I run that, okay, so the total number of words, we've got Lincoln and Swift, but I could feed that any text. I could feed it the whole text of the Bible. I could feed it the Gettysburg Address. I could feed it the Constitution. I could feed it the essay that I just wrote. And it's going to give me a word count because it's a really tight, really clean function. It's a very simple function. But now, anytime I need a word count from a piece of text, there it is. I got that function. I can reuse the crap out of that function. That's beautiful. So let's do one more. Let's do average word length, because I want to find out who uses bigger words, Lincoln or Taylor Swift. It's a mystery. It really is. Let's find out. Average word length. Okay. There's always a balance when you're naming your functions between making them really descriptive of what they do and not making them so long that you hate typing them every time. So you got to get a little creative. It's nice if other people can figure out what the function says. It's kind of like a personalized license plate, really, right? You've got 7 characters to work with, and you really hope other people understand what it is you're trying to say, but you just got to do your best. So that's kind of how it works. So average word length for, I'm going to start out with text again, and I'm going to return, it's going to be a float because floats have to be an average, FL average. Okay, so that's my A to B. That's what I'm starting with the text, and I'm giving you back the average. Okay, so how do I find the average length of the words? Thoughts? I could do the length thing. Okay, so now if we want to get really picky, like I could get the number of words, and I could take the length of the whole string and divide by the number of words. That would be pretty close. The only problem with that is that the length of the whole string, keep spaces in there, approximately 1 space per word. So if I was really, really wanting to be precise about getting the average word length, I would probably want to get rid of all the spaces, which I think one of the easiest ways to do that is to split it and then glue it back together with an empty string. That's just smushes everything together. Another way to do that would be to replace space characters in the string. We don't have a replace function that I've taught you yet, but there is one that I could replace all the spaces with an empty space. But I'm going to leave them in there because I'm not really interested in like scientific accuracy here as much as I just want to make a comparison. And if I'm using the same formula that includes spaces for both, it's going to give me a rough idea. So what I want is the int str length is going to be len str text. Okay, so that's going to give me an integer that represents the length of the text. Now I want to know how many words there are. Easy. I could say int number words equals, if only I had a function for that. Oh wait, I do. And now I need to calculate the average. Equals the total length divided by the number of words. See, I told you that function would come in handy. So I can call this function as long as I have a text to pass it, which I do because I can just pass it right through. And in case you weren't following, let's just give this a different name. Okay, so I'm passing a parameter into this, and then it passes here, passes that parameter into here, and then it reuses it there. And then this passes that back to here, and it finishes. That's the flow there. So when I call that, if I say print average word length, str Lincoln, copy. See, I'm already tired of typing that name. That's probably a problem. Okay, so when I do this, it says print. What am I going to print? I'm going to print the average word length for this string. It takes this string, plugs it in here, passes it to here, passes it to here, and it says, uh-oh, word count. We got to take that up here. So then it gets passed to this one, back here, returns this number back to here, and puts it in here, and then it continues executing, and then it goes to the next line, goes through that same process again. So understanding of the program flow is really important here. So now we have an average word length. Now I'm starting to get concerned for Mr. Lincoln because his words are just, his average word length is not even one whole letter longer than Miss Swift. So now we know what Travis Kelce sees in her, obviously. So it's the intellect. That's what I meant. So those are some really, really clean functions. It's got the black box thing going for it. We've got a clear input, a clear output. We don't have to care how they work. When I say word count, give it a string, give me the word count. Don't care how it works. Doesn't matter. I could change the whole inside of that function if it still took the same input and output. Nobody has to care how it works. So that is the sandbox. And so what I'm saying is feel free to work on that. And I am actually going to spend the next little bit here going over our, which one was that? Oh, yeah.